Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Anti-Social Planet, and today we are watching episodes 11 and 12 of Vinland Saga. So in the last couple of episodes, the last episode specifically, we had a few interesting things happen. One, we had Thorkel. There's a lot of Thor characters, but Thorkel, who was getting a little bit bored with being on the side of Britain and Denmark deciding not to attack, so he did, I guess, the only logical thing that, from his perspective, and decided to kidnap the Prince of Denmark. Canute, I think his name is, decided to kidnap him so that it would kind of force Denmark's hand to fight him because he wanted to be in a really good fight. Just seems to be who he is. But interesting because we had one of the soldiers or messengers from that group of soldiers that were with the prince riding away and was intersected by Askeladd. So Askeladd, hearing that this was going on and deciding that he would also kidnap this prince as his own bargaining chip, just sort of giving him up for ransom to whoever could pay the most, whether that is Britain or Denmark or someone else. I'm sure if some other random third party wanted to pay a bunch of money to get this prince, Askeladd would gladly give that over. So that seems to be the current set of actions that we're dealing with. But we also had some interesting stuff going on with Thorfinn and Askeladd. So we had Thorfinn having his dream sort of nightmare thing where he was young again, back with his family, and was in this place that definitely wasn't Iceland, but was probably Vinland, or like what he thinks Vinland would be like. And he was talking with his father, Thor's, and very interesting that Thor's told him to give up revenge. Specifically, he was like, it's time for you to give up wanting vengeance. And that, I think, is a very crucial thing to introduce at this halfway-ish point of this show so far, because that's like basically all Thorfinn has. Thorfinn's thing is that he is really, really angry at Askeladd, and that's like the thing that motivates him. So having even his like subconscious telling him that maybe he shouldn't want this revenge thing anymore, maybe he should want to be with his family and go back to this very peaceful life that he used to have, even like helping his family and the people of his village find a better place. And he even had some stuff in his dream that was about his village getting attacked. So he seems to be more aware of the fact that he does have a family and a home, and he's been gone for a really long time. And I think he's a little bit weary with the life that he's had for so many years now. I think that his rage is like dwindling a little bit, and he doesn't really know what to do with that. Like, he's kind of digging his heels into being angry because he doesn't know what else to do without that anger. And we also had a conversation with him and Askeladd where Askeladd was talking about how he knows that he's getting old and that eventually someday Thorfinn will win against him because he just won't be able to keep up. And I think that that's part of the reason that Askeladd is deciding to kidnap this Prince of Denmark, because he's like in that kind of restless, like accepting the fact that he doesn't have a lot of his life left and he wants to do something remarkable with it. You know, he wants to do something that makes him remembered and leaves an impression. So there's just like a lot of interesting things being set up, I think, here that I'll be very intrigued to see how those play out through the rest of the series. I feel like definitely as we get into this halfway point, there's a bit of a shifting in the characters' motivations, and there's some complexity being introduced to what motivates them. So I'll be interested to see exactly where the story goes, since it seems a little bit all over the place. But let's just get into episode 11. In 3, 2, 1, go. Ooh, starting with the opener immediately. Sometimes it does that and sometimes it doesn't. I wonder if the opener will change soon. Just thinking, I'm like, we're halfway through. Sometimes they change every like 12-ish episodes. I feel like maybe not though, because there's some things in the opener that we haven't seen yet. I don't think so. If they're even in the show at all. Sometimes openers have stuff that doesn't make it into the show, so. There are quite a few things though that have already happened. I don't know, maybe it'll stay the same. I just really like music, so I get excited about new openers and stuff. Especially since I know who Said the Prophet is. Like, I've heard their music before, so. Hello, Thorkel. That seems like an interesting time to have it be fall, autumn, because that's usually when fighting stops because it gets too cold, right? It's snowing. So people might be desperate to finish up the conflict, at least for a little while, until the winter passes. Now I'm just thinking about cheese. Okay. It's interesting to see a different perspective on like Christianity. Like if you don't know Christianity, like if you didn't grow up in it, I assume some of it would be odd in the same way that like if you grew up in Christianity, you see someone else's belief that you might also think it's weird. I mean, I don't know if the title of prince means much if like they're not your royal family, you know? The title of prince only kind of holds reverence if like you see someone as a prince being important. So, I mean, Thorkill is a little bit crazy. We've seen that that's kind of how he's a little bit out there. Warrior cultures do have some interesting belief systems, though. Like the Fiannan and stuff. Um, uh-oh. Doesn't the Bible have some specific things about drinking alcohol? Special circumstances, perhaps? Uh-oh. Seems like they broke him a little bit. Is it the Vikings? Askeladd? Somebody scouting, maybe? Uh-oh. Ooh, yep. It might be more of the warriors from Denmark trying to get their prince back. Oh, okay, yeah. Ragnar's troops. That's a good point, though. Why would you have to say how many soldiers you have, warriors you have, unless it was a bluff? Like you wanted them to think you had more than you do. Because if you actually have an overwhelming force, then you don't need to like threaten people. Are they just letting them go? I don't feel like this is gonna go well. I feel like it's a bluff of some kind. Oh, is that all he wanted? He just wants them to attack, so he was like, yeah, you can have him back. Fair enough, though. Thorkel definitely just wants a fight. So I guess he wouldn't need to keep the prince if that's what he got. And if they win the fight, they can just keep the prince again. They're definitely gonna try and attack him. And they're not gonna win. I'm just saying. I mean, Thorfinn had difficulty going up against Thorkel. And he's probably a better fighter than any of these guys. I'm just saying. We've seen him go off in fights. So ooh, I like the slight blurring effect while they were running. Just adds some interesting dynamic to it. So Askeladd is here to get involved. Yeah, See, that's seems like the clip from the opener with him going after people. Dang though. To get the tree and that guy. Oh, probably. London did not go great for you guys. Except that Askeladd's gonna show up. Are they gonna start a fire? In the autumn, that would kind of work out. It'd be really dry, so there'd be a lot of smoke. It'd be easy to start the fire and have it spread. Be a good way of encircling someone, too. It is clever. See, I keep going back and forth with Askeladd. I know that he's like not a good person, but at the same time, every once in a while, I'm like, guy's got a point though. Or he does something smart, and I'm like, it's good strategy though. You could also the smoke would also cause issues because people would like choke on it. There's enough smoke. Ugh. Okay, but like Thorkill versus Askeladd would probably be a cool fight. Just saying. They both seem like very experienced fighters, but very different styles. Oh, is he going in through the fire? So he's gonna go retrieve the prince? He is the expendable one, I guess, so they would let him go into the fire. True. Oh no. The deer, though. See, I think it's more than that. I think, um, Bjorn, is that his name? Is right about how Askeladd feels about Thorfinn. I think that Askeladd feels a lot more towards Thorfinn than he'll ever feel for Askeladd. Are you though? Yeah. I was like, the person might just be calling so that they'll tell them where they are. I wonder if the prince actually does have some fighting capability though, or if he's more of a figurehead. Oh, the pony though. There's so many animals that get hurt in this, and it just breaks my heart. I feel like Thorfinn is going to just slaughter everyone here who gets in his way. Ooh, that blur effect though, because he moved really quickly. There's like the shadow for his movement. Ugh. Those dead eyes though. Hey. With his injured hand, I love that close up of the injured hand from his fight. It's a great transition. True. He does kind of use that to his advantage though. People always underestimate him at the beginning, so he always gets like the first chance to surprise attack. I want to know the history with Thor's and Thorkel too. I wonder if they fought together. Oh, because wasn't there a warrior that Thor's was fighting with at like the beginning when he like deserted? Is that how they knew each other? Because I feel like Thorkel would be wherever the good fights were. So if he was part of some kind of conflict or war, I'd believe that he would just show up for the giggles. And I also feel like Thorkel would have like a little bit of an obsession with Thorfinn if he sees him as being really strong and potentially a match for him. Ooh, dang. Managed to survive, and yet the third party got involved. I like how they went to collect their arrows, because that's just like smart. You definitely shouldn't trust him to protect you, I'm just saying. He holds to his word in the loosest way possible. We haven't fully seen his face, have we? I don't think so. We've seen like little bits of it. Everyone taken aback because he's pretty. I wonder if the dynamic between like Ragnar and Knut and Thorfinn is going to be a little bit different, because I feel like it's fairly clear that Thorfinn isn't really part of Askeladd and his group. Like, I think anyone can see that he doesn't really want to be part of it. He doesn't like sleep in the same place as they do. He doesn't eat with them. Like, he's very much trying to keep himself as a separate entity because he doesn't want to be part of it. And I wonder if while Ragnar and Knut are like in that group with them, I'm assuming as they travel, that they will kind of like latch on to that fact, the fact that Thorfinn is more of an outlier with the group. So I wonder if they will use that to their advantage because they see someone who isn't loyal to Askeladd. Not that I think the rest of his group is particularly loyal to Askeladd in particular. I think they fear him because he's definitely the strongest one there, and they want the money that he brings in. So I don't know if they have loyalty in the same way that we might think, but I wonder if they'll lean into that and if Thorfinn will kind of be open to that happening, because he has been having doubts about his revenge and stuff like that. Like, I think that he doesn't see himself as part of Askeladd's group anyway, so he doesn't have any loyalty whatsoever to Askeladd and his group. The only reason he's interested in them at all is because of Askeladd and because he wants revenge for his father, but he's starting to lose that rage a lot. I feel like he had far more of a like dead look in his eyes, far more unaffected by everything that was going on. We saw up to this point that he kind of has this like battle rage that he would kind of have when he was in some kind of conflict, where he would let his emotions take over because he was so desperate to get stronger in order to fight against Askeladd, that and he was always trying to prove himself. Askeladd was always saying, oh, you have to do this in battle, you have to prove yourself in battle, and then you can fight me again, you can challenge me again. And now he seems a little bit more subdued. Maybe that's because that wasn't really the point of this particular conflict, but also I think he's just realizing that maybe his rage and his need for revenge isn't enough anymore. And even his conversation with Askeladd, where he's like, yeah, one day you're gonna defeat me, it's just a matter of time, like it's gonna happen, because eventually I'll just be old and I won't be able to keep up anymore. That I wonder if Thorfinn is starting to open up to the idea that there's something else that he should be doing with his life and his time and his passion, and I wonder if he'll be open to the idea of having an out. Like, if he were to be offered by like Ragnar, hey, if you help us, then you can come to Denmark, we can give you some kind of shelter, we can get you back home. Like, I bet if they said, hey, if you help us, we'll figure out how to get you back home, like maybe that is something that Thorfinn would consider now, because he seems to be more aware of the fact that he has a family and a home and it isn't with Askeladd. So I do wonder if maybe there is some kind of leverage there that they can like benefit off of each other and negotiate something, but I have no idea. If nothing else, it feels like we are going to definitely run into Thorkel again. Even though he doesn't have the prince, he does want to fight Thorfinn. We got a lot more, well, we got a little bit more information about how Thorkel knows Thors and Helga, which is Thorfinn's mother. So seems to be some history there. I do think that they were fighting together in the first episode before Thors deserted. And I think that Thorkel would be more open to the idea of Thors being a deserter because he doesn't have any loyalty to a particular side either. Like, he's just fighting on the side that he thinks will be more fun in the conflict. He doesn't really care which side it is or if it's any side. He's basically fighting for himself. And I think that he's probably one of the few people that Thor's fought with who would not be upset with Thor's leaving for any kind of reason. He'd be like, I don't know, maybe it wasn't fun anymore, maybe he didn't want to be part of it, whatever. Like, I don't think that Thorkel would take that personally because he wouldn't see it as like him being part of a particular side or not. So I would be interested to kind of see where that relationship of some kind is. I don't think that Thor's would be friends with someone like Thorkel, but I guess if you're fighting each other and you can kind of trust each other to look after you, then you kind of bond in that way if you're in like a really stressful near-death experience. But I wouldn't say that they were friends, so I think that there's probably some backstory to how they ended up fighting alongside each other, but always lots of things. And this one, it seems a little bit more closer to like following the narrative than I've seen up to this point. It seemed before episodes were kind of isolated, so we'll see how things kind of develop in the next episode, but let's just get into episode 12. In 3, 2, 1, go. Start with the opener again. I don't know why I'm shocked. I think most of the time it starts with the opener. I'd be interested if we have another time skip. Like if it's shows them during the winter, because it was autumn, and they're kind of like in a hold position. As they go through the winter where they can't really fight in the way that they would in like the summer. See, I'm watching the opener more closely now, and I feel like most of the events that are in the opener or that are like kind of related to the opener scenes have happened. Which is kind of cool. I've gotten to a point where I like have some context for most of the stuff that happens. There might be some little details that I don't understand because I haven't gotten to that part yet, but I think for the most part, I like know what the scenes are. Like I think the last few were in that episode that I just watched. Fishing seems like a very mundane thing to be doing, given all the madness that is in this series. Oh, hello. I guess they would be, wouldn't they? I didn't know Askeladd spoke English. Look at him go. Being multilingual. He probably could have made a lot of money if he was bringing all of them across. Yeah, the guy's doing the listening thing. I remember learning about how people used to like listen to hear marching and stuff. There's some cool history to it, like the different tools that they would use to like listen for marching soldiers nearby. Is that what the note was for? For reinforcements? From whom, though? Because Askeladd seems to kind of switch around who he's allied with. I guess that's true. They're kind of used to being on a boat, but they've been marching for a while. They also have that village they usually go to in like the winter, so they probably won't be able to go back there if they have this prince with them. Ominous. I feel like Bjorn's the only one who really knows Askeladd. What is it about his face? Sure. And what did you see in the prince? I thought maybe he recognized him, but it might be something more abstract. What's with the still shot? I like the guitars. You would want like exhausted warriors though. That's sort of where I'm concerned. If they aren't resting well, then they're not going to be much use in a fight. Who did we ask for reinforcements from? You seem like a not pleasant person. All the shadows on his face. Commander of. For whom, though? Ooh, like a proper soldier with all the armor and stuff. It seems close to Askeladd's. Askeladd is like the only one who has like proper armor out of all of them, which I just sort of thought was like a status thing, but maybe there's a story to that. Like, where did he learn to fight? What do the eyes mean? Oh, they made a sort of alliance with whales? Interesting. Whales I know a lot about. They were only sort of part of England. Yeah, there was lots of different kings, especially at this point. Okay, I didn't realize they were so far south. I mean, Wales is angry at most people at this point, which I mean, given how people keep invading them and pushing them around, somewhat understandable. Interesting. What are his connections to Wales? Oh, see, they're going to be in close proximity to each other then. I wonder if, because they'll be spending more time with each other, there will be some kind of understanding, perhaps. He doesn't seem thrilled, though. They seem like very different people externally. Given his name, I'd say he's Roman. Does that mean that Askeladd speaks Latin? Welsh? Or does this guy speak uh Norse? See, I understand why Wales would want to negotiate that. They just wanted to not be pushed out of their country anymore. He's got to learn to speak for himself. Oh, definitely. But I mean, why not negotiate if the chance is right there? A farm? Can't really go around fighting if you have a farm. They take a lot of work. I mean, you don't seem to seek much at this point, besides alcohol. I wouldn't have thought love would have been what we were asking for, but sure. I mean, it sort of does make sense, though. Silver's only valuable because we think it's pretty. We find an infatuation with it. And the more that we like something, the more expensive we think it is. Aw. I like that some of them are, like, legitimately interested, though. Interesting to have that shot of Thor's there, because I do really feel like Askeladd holds Thor's in really high regard. That I think that's why he feels slightly more attached to Thorfinn. Excalibur reference? Which wasn't a thing in the Welsh tales of King Arthur. Just saying. I'm pretty sure that that's introduced by the French version of the stories. Don't get me started on Arthurian legends and stuff, though. I'll talk for a really long time. A trap of some kind? Especially on a narrow pass like that. It would be a good place to ambush someone. Because where are you gonna go? You can only go forward or back, really. And there's high ground. Uh-oh. Good transition, though. With the arrow. The king again of England. I was gonna say, is it Thor's friend? Who's still looking for Thorfinn? He does look vaguely like Thorfinn might. I was wondering if he was still searching, because he said that he was going to Thorfinn's mother. But we just, like, never saw him again. Oh, no, pony! This is very similar to when Thor's was attacked by Askeladd in the water. Ooh, ominous. So I'm gonna try to not get like too excited about the fact that they're in Wales, because for those who don't know, I took a bunch of classes in Celtic studies in university to the point where some of the professors from the Celtic studies department thought that that was my major. Even though it wasn't, because I just like was so interested in that, and I took so many classes about like Wales and Welsh language and Welsh mythology and stuff, and I won't get into how much I know about like Welsh culture and stuff like that, especially Arthurian stuff, because I will go down the rabbit hole of all of the finer details of Arthurian like Celtic mythology and stuff, which I don't think is super important to this particular story, but I think it's a really interesting like switch, because you get so pulled in, I think, by the fact that this is a conflict between England and Denmark, and that has been like the focus of the conflict this whole time, that you kind of forget that there's like other people who are also like in proximity, and especially choosing something like Wales that has this history of being in conflict with both England and Denmark, and not wanting to be invaded by either. So they're kind of a, I don't know, I don't want to say neutral party, but like third party, like they're not really interested in either side succeeding, like they aren't on the side of England or Denmark, they're really just on the side of Wales. So they're kind of neutral ground in the sense that they aren't going to side one way or the other, they're going to do their own thing. So it's really interesting to bring that part of it in, and they're right there too, like they're just like farther west. So it's not something like Ireland, which is like an entirely different, you know, piece of land off on its own farther north. So they're like very close to the conflict, but they don't have a history of wanting to be part, like allied with either or. So having them like be like, all right, we'll help you with this prince if we get a promise that when Denmark defeats Britain, or we help them defeat Britain, that they will not try to invade Wales. So I like that that is something that's being brought into it, the history there, and, you know, acknowledging that there are some other conflicts in history and like peoples who are also around that don't want to be sucked into this conflict, but are kind of forced to just by like proximity. I wonder if we'll get anything about Scotland. I don't know exactly where Scotland was at this point, but I wonder if they will, because they're like far north, so I don't know how much they'll get pulled into it. Wales kind of got pulled into it because they're like still like far enough south that they're still like, they're just north of France, so there's some crossover there. So I'll try not to get too fascinated by the fact that it's in Wales. I was kind of floundering a little bit when it was focused on like Norse culture and like Icelandic culture and stuff like that, because I don't really know much about that in particular, but Celtic I do, so I get a little bit excited. Yeah, interesting to see that that is a connection. I wonder what Askeladd's connection is. I wonder if he is connected to like when Rome was occupying Wales and Britain, if that is one of his connections. He does have like the armor, which makes me think that he's like definitely has more like structured training in fighting and being a warrior and stuff like that. He definitely has a lot of skills, so maybe that's part of it, and that would be like why he knows this particular commander from Wales who has a Roman name. There could be some connections with that. I also like that we're getting Thorfinn as a bodyguard for Canute, because it's interesting to, well, because I already predicted that I was like, they're probably going to have some kind of conversation because Thorfinn is obviously an outlier. So giving the opportunity for them to be close to each other for a while and sort of interact and spend more time with each other than, you know, like they would with the other members of Askeladd's group, I think opens up a lot of opportunities for them to at least come to an understanding. I don't know if they'll bond, because Thorfinn doesn't exactly want to make friends, so I don't know if there'll be a friendship, but they might come to some kind of agreement between them. I think it will probably be with Ragnar more than Canute, but we'll see how that goes. Perhaps there seems to be more of a narrative structure now, which I appreciate. I like having more of a connection and through line, and it's easier for me to kind of keep up with things that way. But getting a callback to the friend from Thor's village, whose name I can't remember because we haven't seen him since like episode 3, but he promised that he would look for Thorfinn. That was like the last thing we saw from him. He said he was going to go back, and because he brought all of the other like younger men that were going with Thor's back to their village, and then he told Helga that he was gonna go and look for Thorfinn and bring him back. So it looks like he still sort of is looking for him, keeping an eye out for him, hoping that he'll run into him. So I wonder if we will get some kind of meeting or crossover, like some kind of piece of information that will be passed on for where Thorfinn is or not. But it definitely seems like things are kind of gearing up. I like that we're getting some more structure to the story as we're getting into like the second part of the season, because I feel like a lot of things kind of have to be set up, especially if we're going into like the second season. So I'm just giddy about everything kind of like coming together. But you can click this playlist to go and see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so you don't miss the next time I post a Vinland Saga video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!